Well, good morning. It took us 3 minutes this morning again to get from the television studio to the radio studio. And by the time we'd completed the formalities, another couple of minutes had gone by. Keith Hayes, Rouser Radio, Lewis, East Sussex, trying to look after the folk from Battle to Brighton, up to Tunbridge Wells, and up to Gatwick. Are we doing a good job? Well, we get to a few extra people every day, so perhaps we're getting there. Well, we don't seem to be getting there at all. For some reason, the music didn't play. So another stuttering start, but we'll get there. We'll get there, I assure you. Well, good morning, Keith Hayes. Rouser Radio, coming out of Lewis, East Sussex, and looking after, hopefully, some of the issues that affect those people from Battle to Brighton on the south coast of the United Kingdom, but also chatting and trying to put into perspective some of the things that are happening around the world. And it is quite important, I think, that we are aware, even though we're a small community or a collection of a conurbation of small communities, that we do know what's going on in the rest of the world, because there are a lot of things that happen that are very similar. One of the people who pops in from time to time is a very good friend of mine from my university days, and then latterly, where we've met, and she's visited East Sussex, is a lady called, I knew her as Mary McCall. Her name is now Mary Halsaw, who lives just about as far away from us as we possibly get, 8 hours difference in time zone, in Victoria, British Columbia, and they've got pretty damn poor governance in Victoria. They've got a council who doesn't seem to know what they're doing, and who have made a complete and utter mess of it. And what do the citizens do? Of course, because they don't pay any attention, they only just gurn, they just moan, and they put the same lot back in, and now they're moaning again, and poor Mary got together a group of concerned citizens, and they worked their butts off to try and get in a decent slate of people. What happened? Disaster at the polls for them. And that's the trouble. People just don't care. They don't listen. Oh, well, I recognise that name. And the first people down to create havoc if things don't go to their liking are the very people who put that lot back in. Well, Mary, I really feel for you, because the same thing is likely to happen here. I can't see much change in the wind. I can't see much change from north to south. And it is rather a pity that that's the case. But what is it about a democracy that we are unable to use it sensibly? It's not that anybody should tell you how to vote, but people should vote having thought out the issues, not because they recognise the name or the face. I've heard people say, well, I voted for him because he's such a nice man. Yeah, and totally, utterly, bloody useless. How sad, though, that that's the sort of thing that we actually put up with in our society. We allow, because we're not good enough at persuading people how special their vote is. And having been denied the vote from time to time in the places that I've lived, although I do have a postal vote so that I can vote while I'm away. But, a lot of the countries that I visit and I work in, let's say Kosovo, Bosnia, Russia, for that matter, the Middle East, Africa, as they understand just how precious it is to have a vote. we don't take it for granted in this country and start to moan and gurn about isms and so on and so forth. Well, the most precious thing that you have got is the vote, the ballot. And if that was taken away from you, you'd soon get upset. So use it sensibly, for goodness sake. Let's use the vote sensibly. That doesn't mean to say you've got to vote the way that I would vote or I have to vote your way. But what you do have to do is to think about the issues. And there are plenty of issues in the area of Battle to Brighton to worry about. If we get to the county level, are we really going to let them take the bus pass away from old people? Are we really going to let them charge for using libraries? Okay, I think a library card when I was a boy cost you threepence or something, and that was really to make sure that you actually treated the coupon with the ticket with some respect, because there were some people who would take on forget it, so the poor old library staff were busy writing them out for the same people 1,000 times in a year. So if you had to pay threepence each time, it wasn't such a bad thing. But that's different to being charged for going into a library. These things haven't come to pass yet, but the mere fact that a council could start to think in that way is beyond me. And what I've noticed is that we have a group of people, and generally speaking, this group of somewhere in that age range of about 35 to 55, who are quite happy to pick on the vulnerable in society. Whenever you look at what they're going to do in terms of cuts, it's always the elderly, the lame, the sick. Those are the areas that they threaten. I don't hear any of them saying, hey, let's start to look at high salaries. And actually, for once, the government has started to do it, but where they're picking on schools. There's a big review of academy headmasters, some of whom are apparently making 150. In fact, I think in one case there is a headmaster on $250,000. Well, perhaps they're worth it. I have no idea. But the fact of the matter is, it's whether you're worth it or not, can you afford it? You know, I could put a tab on myself of, let's see, what am I worth? Well, not quite $250,000, but say 200,000. That's not what I'm getting. Because there's nobody willing to pay it. And we've got to actually look at it from that point of view, is you may be worth it, but can we afford it? And those are the sort of areas, high salaries, excessive spending, inefficiency, that we should start to look at. And instead of picking on the lame, the sick, and the elderly, which I'm afraid many of our councils do. And every time you hear the sort of chat and discussion and debate that they want to use with, the funding has been cut from central government. So it has, but you're there to make sure that that's used wisely and sensibly, not to pick on a vulnerable part of society and say, that's the only thing we can do. It's not the only thing you can do. And the mere fact that much of what you do is covert is really, really very upsetting. There's very little that we, the citizen, know. You all decide to do all sorts of things behind closed doors. Well, we didn't give you that mandate. We didn't give you that power. So when we come up to this election, let's ask a few questions. Do you approve of covert government? Do you approve of an executive who actually governs the elected officials? You people who are asking for our vote. Those are the sort of questions we should be asking, and I'm asking them now. So carry them with you. Am I getting upset? No, I'm not getting upset. I'm getting feisty first thing in the morning. But elections do that to me. Let's see. I love going to New Haven because I think it's a community that's a bit put upon. They join the lame, the sick, and the elderly. But out of I think I can't remember which book of the Bible it is, but about the lion that Samson finds honey in, and I think there's a phrase in the Bible that says something out of out of power or something, it comes forth goodness. But anyway, the poor old New Haven, not always given the best deal, but out of it they have produced a couple of singers, Dandelion Charm, and they gave me a new track to promote a concert they did in Hove a couple of weeks or so ago, which was a huge success. So let's calm me down and perhaps calm you down with it. It's called September.
Take good care of all you see and do. Keep your sunshine, hold it close to you. And always will remember the light shining from you. And I hope September is not blue, is not blue, is not blue. Till this chapter's through, time gets lost, but time is always new, and always will remember the light shining from you. And I hope your September is not blue, is not blue, is not blue, is not blue, is not blue. Look ahead, do not fret. There's nothing that you cannot do. Look ahead, do not fret, 'cause everything's waiting for you. Oh, everything's waiting for you. And always will remember the light shining from you. And I hope your September, really hope your September is not blue, is not blue. It's not blue. It's not blue. It's not blue.
Well, there we are. Dandelion Charm out of New Haven. John and Claire. Terrific duo, and they play a lot around, and at various gigs, as they call it, because I'm too old to use these in expressions, but they play gigs at various places, and